I think that you do have to look at Red a little bit and how much more time does he have here, because to see a team that was so dominant those first 2 years, this senior class, just the way they've played these past 2 years when they're upperclassmen and when they're supposed to carry this team, they haven't panned out in the manner that they should have. And I think some of that does have to fall on Red as much good as this guy's done for Michigan hockey. And you can't say enough about it. But at the same time, part of the shortcomings of this senior class does fall on Red's shoulders.
And Adam mentioned the senior class. Talk about the players leaving after the season: Matt Rust, Carl Hagelin, Chad Langlis, Brian Hogan,
Louis Caparuso,
and there's
Louis Caparuso has less goals than Scooter Vaughn. So don't forget Scooter Vaughn. Scooter Vaughn's important, right?
Rumor that John Merrill might be leaving. This team is facing a serious talent depletion after this year, and they're not doing that well this season. Trouble relies on the horizon.
These seniors really need to rally around.
Trouble relies on the horizon or relies on
these seniors really need to take a hold of this team and do something to light a fire. They've got 6 very winnable games coming up.
Right. And they need to win them. We're going to talk about that a little bit later.
Right. Don't want to
both for CCHA implications and NCAA implications. So we're running a little bit behind, but let's take a look at our working overtime picks for this week. For the first time in the history of working overtime, I choose an opponent. For the first time, Andy Mealy, his second straight 5-point weekend. CCHA Player of the Month last month. Follows that up with this great weekend. That guy's incredible. Again, right from under Michigan's nose, from Grosse Pointe. Adric, that would be Adam and Merrick combined, both chose AJ Treyas. I just like how that graphic works out without, having to throw in another copy of AJ Treyas' face. And then Peter, why the centers? That's Louis Caparuso there.
Well, yeah, as your subtitle there says it a lot. Did anybody really work overtime? So you have to kind of find the gems in the rough from this series and from the season. And the fact is that Michigan centers have been great on faceoffs all season long. Louis Caparuso, Matt Rust especially. Faceoffs, a very important part of hockey.
It's 2 weeks in a row, I think, that the subtitle has read, did anybody really work overtime?
It is indeed. You are correct. We kept that the same. And also, interesting to point out that Michigan had struggled on faceoffs last year and the year before, actually losing more than half despite being a great team. And this year they've turned that around, but the results perhaps mixed. We need to go to commercial break because we're running behind. But on the other side, CCHA and NCAA implications.
And your mother was begging Barack to stop.
Hey guys, how's it going? Are you ready for the show?
Of course I am, you knucklehead. Who do you think I am? I'm Sir Charles Barkley.
I don't know. Look at yourself before you pass judgment. Okay.
David, I was promised 8 pounds of turkey in exchange for appearing on Varsity Blue. Where is my turkey? That is my question.
But have you guys even thought about if Trotch to get fired or not this year?
What are you saying? Is it true? Sure. Indeed. Yes. 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 I mean it this time.
No, David, I will not answer your question until you give me the turkey that I was promised in exchange for appearing on the show. I cannot think until I get my turkey. We are
Varsity
Blues.
If I had one word to describe Varsity Blue, it would definitely not be terrible, you knucklehead. Alexander Prasad.
Welcome back to WOLV Overtime, not Varsity Blue. Alex Prasad, Adam Brewster, Peter Saul. I don't know if you watched the Super Bowl, but in the pregame, Fox imitating WOLV had the Shaq Charles Barkley show. That was interesing. It was like the same
I'm working
idea.
On the lawsuit already.
You're working on the lawsuit already?
Adam Brewster, Esquire.
All right, good. Let's take a look at the CCHA standings, though. Looks like Miami #1, Michigan slips to #3. Games at hand, though, in there for Michigan. It looks like the CCHA tournament, though, Peter, that first round bye, perhaps interesting. But Ohio State gave Michigan trouble in the past. We're going to see them coming up a little bit later here. Also, Western Michigan still on the schedule, I believe. Is that right? Mm-hmm. That's right, too. So, Western Michigan having the best season they've had in forever. So, Peter, are the CCHA alarm bells going off? Because they're definitely going off for the national tournament, which we'll talk about in a second.
Well, actually, the new CCHA format with Nebraska-Omaha going to WCHA, it's only 11 teams in CCHA now, and now 5 teams get first-round byes in the CCHA tournament as opposed to 4 as on previous seasons. Yes, you're out of date.
Version 2.0 needs to be downloaded.
So there is a bit of a gap there between the 5th and 6th team. So it seems certain that Michigan will get a first-round bye. However, as we mentioned in the past, having a high seed versus a low seed in that second round, you're talking about playing Alaska versus, say, a team like Lake Superior State. There's a huge difference in that talent differential.
Lake Superior State had a defenseman and rookie or a freshman win awards this past
Well, good
weekend.
for
Well, no, hey, I'm just saying they're nothing to sneeze at, especially I guess with the results of the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, this is true. I mean, Michigan's got to win, I think, 5 out of these next 6. And I think that would give them a good enough seed, a good enough standing at least.
Well, let's take a look at the bracketology now in light of the 3 straight losses. You see here Michigan dropping from a 2 seed to a 3 seed. Should be noted dropping from the number 1 2 seed to a number 2 3 seed. So 16 teams, there's 4 3 seeds. So Michigan now the third of those. Western Michigan slipped to a number 4 seed overall. They actually were a number 3. Notre Dame solidifying the number 3 spot. But Miami still on the outside looking in despite sweeping Michigan.
Right, well, they're tied for 15th in the pairwise, so they are literally right on the borderline, right on the bubble there for the NCAA tournament. I would not be surprised to see them rocket up these rankings to possibly 2 seed if the way they played this weekend
Perhaps
continues.
the only silver lining to this is that Michigan moved in this latest iteration from the West to the Midwest, so it went from St. Louis to Green Bay. Titletown, that's right. Won another one this past weekend. Do you think, now last year, of course, it was CCHA tournament win or bust to make the tournament. Do you see this slide continuing so that we are again on tournament streak watch, or do you think they're going to slip in and just everyone hold your horses?
No, I think Michigan's going to slip in. Everybody just needs to take a step back and let's see how they do this.
Hold your horses, take a step back.
Hold your horses,
take a
step back, take a deep breath. Don't hit the panic button just yet, but have your hand right over it. It's going to be interesting to see how they come out this weekend against one of those lesser teams in Ohio State, and then playing Western, who's not a easy foe, but at the same time, Michigan should be able to handle Western, at least get 4 points out of that series, and you would look for them to split against Northern at least, going all the way up to Marquette. But it's not an easy road, but it's a very doable one.
Seems to be a common theme. Well, let's change gears before we shift our focus to Ohio State. It was announced recently that Yost is going to install video boards. Oh, there you see the beautiful old, but it's so beautiful now.
Oh.
Why would you change that? Look at that with the crash zoom too.
High quality.
High quality. See, now, this is what I'm worried about, guys.
The
Are they going
Cowboys
to put that? That's the Cowboy Stadium.
53 yards wide.
53 yards wide. They can put that in Yost? That's really going to change the ambiance.
As long as I still play the Michigan version of the good old hockey game song on the big board, I could care less.
I just can only imagine the M's with stars on the 53-yard wide.
Yeah, no, they need to keep the same graphics, just in HD.
Right, just an HD update.
That'll be the best way that they can do it.
It will be good to finally see the CCHA referee goal reviews when who knows what they're doing on the big screen for once, so the Yost fans can attack them even more.
What? Go ahead.
One of the things we talked about, maybe Red Berenson. Well, he's obviously on the tail end of his career, but how much longer is he going to be around? And he was a big part of recruiting. And now that you kind of are modernizing Yost a little bit, maybe that can help when he's gone. It's certainly something to think about.
It's true. You mentioned Miami's great new arena, Ohio State, the Value City Arena, Notre Dame's building a new arena. Not to say that Yost needs to be rebuilt by any means, obviously, but some nice touches.
Right, so the question is the charm of a building built in 1903 or whatever it was, it's a basketball field house, going to be undermined by the insertion of big video boards? Just like the big house was undermined by the building of the suites.
Well, I think it's going to be just like the normal Jumbotron now, but with HD screens as opposed to funny little graphics, which you'll shed a tear.
Right. I'll miss the funny little graphics.
I will too.
Can I have a moment of silence for the funny little graphics, please?
That's it. That's enough.
Okay. Oh, geez. I don't know. I like the penalty one. I wish we could do that in WOLV overtime. Well, we need to take a commercial break, but coming out on the other side, we're going to welcome in Greg, who's going to preview Ohio State. Welcome back to WOLV overtime. Peter Saul, Adam Brewster, Alex Prasad, the very familiar audible on that. We welcome now onto the show Greg Kosan, who's going to break down Ohio State. How's it going, Greg?
I'm doing good, Alex. How about you?
I'm doing well. So, Greg, we've been talking a lot about how worried we are about this upcoming series. Let's start with Ohio State on offense. What scorers do we need to be worried about on this Buckeyes team?
Well, I look at this Ohio State team, and I think there's really only 3 guys you have to worry about, and those would be Zach. Let me just double check their names for a second. John Albert, Denny Drayett, and Sergio Soma. They're really the only 3 scorers that Ohio State has. They're the only guys that are really making any sort of contributions to the team this season. So
perhaps the 3-headed monster, kind of like Miami, Ohio, who had Kahone or Canoni rather, Mealy, and then their captain as well, whose name is escaping me at this moment.
Carter Camper.
That's right, Carter Camper. That's a great name. That's a really good name.
Not quite Tank Carter of
Like-
TCU.
I mean, Pop Up could have been his name. Camper, Pop Up, Camper. That would have been great. Anyway, but Greg, what about the goaltending? Has Ohio State got anybody between the pipes that Michigan might be worried about scoring on?
Well, there's really only one goalie that I could find when I was looking at Ohio State's depth chart, and his name is Cal Heater. He's roughly about in conference play. He has about the same stats as Sean Hunwick does. They have roughly the same goals allowed average, but he's the only goalie they have. Obviously, with Michigan, we know all about Brian Hogan as well as Sean Hunwick, both of which are very good goalies and have been splitting playing time, mostly because, and obviously Hunwick's been getting more playing time because Hogan's been hurt the last couple for a while, but he's coming back, and I think that Michigan is got the edge on goalie.
All right, well, that's good to hear. Thanks a lot, Greg. We'll be looking forward to more previews, hopefully, here as the season progresses. So let's talk about the series. Of course, earlier in the year, Michigan and Ohio State faced off. This was in the Friday, Saturday, Wonder
Fiasco.
World, funhouse mirror that Michigan was operating under. So the Friday game, a 2-1 lead in the third period. So this is a qualifier on that Miami-Ohio stat. Ohio State tied it up in the third period, so maybe they did blow that lead. They didn't actually lose in the third period. Went to overtime with a couple minutes left in overtime. Michigan gave up a game-winning goal. It was a power play goal, by the way, at the end of that game. So it was a 6-on-4 because Ohio State pulled Mr. Heater, as Greg pointed out to us. So, Peter, how many points and what's your justification
Well,
for
we
that
all
number?
played this game completely incorrect last week, and no one predicted 0 points. Hard to say, a home series against a good Ohio State team. They're always, pretty decent playing at Yost. I'm going to say 4 points this weekend. And I see the Michigan players, the offensive players, getting back on track. And I think, your guys that are supposed to stand out, your Hagelins, your Russ, I think we'll see them back this series. But John Albert is no player to sleep on.
Do you really think that's going to happen? The Michigan score is getting back on track? Because Heater's got good numbers, too.
Heater has good numbers, very comparable to Sean Helmwick, as Greg mentioned. But I think that you will see guys like Carl Hagelin, who hasn't scored since the first game of the Alaska series, Louis Capruso, Luke Glendening. I think you'll see at least a few of those guys get their first goals in a while last weekend, and they really just need to start getting that offense clicking. The passing needs to be a little crisper, and those cross-ice passes, right? You need to see more of those.
And I guess one of the more interesting questions of the weekend will be, Peter, who's going to play between the pipes for the Wolverines on Friday and on Saturday?
Right, Hunwick playing well, no question about it, good numbers, but we've seen in the past that, this Michigan hockey team will play better for one goalie versus the other, just wins, and it's odd to say that. But, Red might be looking for a shakeup, and it might be a time to try Brian Hogan Friday night, see how he plays. He hasn't played in a very long time, since before the big chill.
Right.
So it'd be interesting to see how he does on Friday night and how the team reacts to that change.
It's going to be dependent on how Hogan is in practice this week, obviously, having not seen game time since the Ohio State series.
Right.
Since that Saturday night when he played, and Michigan won that game, but he looked real exasperated on the bench.
That's true. This is true.
Looked kind of like, wow, I could be out there right now doing this. But it is interesting to say, would be interesting to see, because as Peter pointed out, Michigan does tend to play better for one goalie than the other, and you might see a little bit of a shakeup.
Well, every year. The past couple of years, it's been one guy's a favorite,
Sauer
one
versus
guy's
Hogan,
a not.
Hogan versus Hunwick, Hunwick versus Hogan. It always changes.
And it was Hogan this year, and then they rallied around Hunwick, and that rallying has kind of slid back a little bit, but these are important games coming.
So should maybe Hogan play really bad in practice so they all think he's as bad as they thought Sean Hunwick was when he started to play last year, so they play with that furious, dedication that they did last year? That's what I'm hoping for anyway. So Peter said 4 points this weekend. Adam?
4 points.
4 points as well. Really? Huh? Okay, we'll see.
Bold reasoning.
It will be at the beautiful Yost Arena, Ice Arena, sans HD video boards, but it should be a good matchup nonetheless. So it's a rivalry game, even though it's hockey. Yeah. It's a rivalry game.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, well, that's all the time we have this week on WOLV Overtime. For Peter, Saul, Adam Brewster, I'm Alex Prasad. Tune in next week, and hopefully we'll be talking about a Michigan sweep.